You want some salad with that? It's time for another side dish.
Do you spend a lot of time thinking these up? Because they're all like, we're doing the DJ thing on the radio here.
It's
Uh,
true. What do we
yes,
want? What are we talking about today, though,
we are
Steve?
talking about the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari today. If I assume that's how you say it, it sounds like it. But before we start that, if you go back earlier this season, we watched a movie Troll Hunter, and my partner got me a Troll Hunter shirt.
Yep.
I'm very happy with this.
Excellent.
So yeah, thank you. Uh,
Yeah, no problem. I saw that and just thought of you right away. So
yeah, I love it. I think it'd be even better if it just had like some splotches of like goo or something.
some troll essence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Dr. Caligari, Cabinet Dr. Caligari. What do we got here? It's a film in 6 acts. Like we've talked about before, a lot of these old silent films were still done very much like a stage play. And I even thought of that watching it because there's a camera set up and you watch everything happen and the camera doesn't move. There's no panning, no dolly, no steady cam, nothing. So it's a different time, definitely. And this is a hugely unique movie.
It is. It's widely regarded as like the first actual horror movie, a movie that was made to creep you out, not just like George Méliès, where you're like, hey, I can do this, and this is kind of cool, and ooh, kind of spooky. This like has plot, it's got characters, and
Yes.
it's a genuinely creepy film from 1920.
Yeah, and part of what makes it creepy are the sets. It's German expressionist and it looks like Wonderland. The doors are crooked, everything's got weird angles, done completely on purpose.
Yeah, it's it sets up this dreamlike setting. There's 6 things that define German expressionism. You have distorted, exaggerated sets, chiaroscuro lighting, which you could see where you have very bright and very dark darks, sharp, jagged shapes, unnaturalized, stylized acting, psychological themes of madness and obsession, and a sense of unease and dread are all the 6 things you look for in a German expressionist film. So,
And they're all here. And I even said this is a good example of the first. We talk about this a lot, also. The first psychological horror is what we're watching happening. Is it all in their head, or what's real, what's not? And with the sets, it definitely puts that. I have no idea if this is real or not going on, but they have a bookend bit that explains it, and the writers didn't want that. That was put in by the
correct.
executives later. So it's a different movie than what the writers originally wanted.
Yeah, what the writers originally wrote was actually kind of this, for lack of a better word, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of story where you have this guy who's a villain, but actually during the day he's a respectable guy and somebody figures him out. But when you put the bookends on it, it turns out maybe the guy didn't figure it out. Maybe he was just crazy all along.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And it does a very good job of that. I mean, I've seen more modern day movies that don't do as good a job as this one did.
for sure, for sure.
One of the things I found very kind of funny and interesting, it's a different change in times, the portrayal of mental health in some of these movies, especially these old ones. At the time, sleepwalking is a mental problem. And they pictured a sleepwalker as someone who sleeps all the time, except when they walk and do things that are not in their control. It was very mysterious. And I chuckled at that a bit.
And it kind of vilifies the concept of the psychiatrist, really. And that's kind of important when you consider what was being published at the time. Freud was actively publishing at the time, basically building the whole concept of psychotherapy. And Carl Jung was also publishing at the same time on either sides of Germany. I mean, they weren't German, one's Austrian and one's Belgian, but,
Close.
on either sides, yeah. So I don't know if it's a statement by Karl Mayer and Hans Jangwitz who wrote it. This is what they think of psychotherapy. It's a way to like trap people, and it's certainly not portrayed as something good.
Definitely. Yeah. And that really kind of holds into today a lot. Still we're definitely breaking that stigma, but it's still a holdover 100 years later, 100 some years later.
Yeah, might be worth mentioning of all of the cast, Conrad Veidt, who played Caesar, the creepy guy who
Somnambulist.
sleeps all the time. Yes, the somnambulist. He showed up in another movie you and I have both seen, Casablanca. Uh,
Okay.
He played Major Heinrich Strausser, the head of the police force at Casablanca. He's the only one who went on. I mean, Lil Dagover, who played Jane, she kept making movies into the 70s, but they're almost all German films. So, but I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I just watched Casablanca with Colin and didn't recognize him. You know, so close.
Yeah, the
Interesting.
little mustache and all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of the things I like in some of these older movies, you know, Phantom Carriage, the effect with the carriage, you know, and some of the stuff they did in Freaks and some of the Nosferatu, which, you know, we both seen, I just watched recently, when the doctor was going crazy and all the words were popping around on the screen. I was like, that's a pretty cool effect for
yeah.
1920, you know?
And the funny thing was they did a marketing thing where they started pasting those all over downtown Berlin before the film came out. And so people kept seeing these, you know, who is Dr. Caligari? Who is, you know, they're just like, what is this? And here it was kind of, you know, an early marketing scheme to try and get people to go out and see the movie when it came out.
We get those still today.
To
Very
this day, yeah.
Yeah. So
This was Nicolas Cage's favorite film.
really,
Yes, and Akira Kurosawa, you know, the guy who did Seven Samurai and stuff.
yeah.
This was one of his top films of all time too. So
So it's definitely one to go watch and check out. So you can say you've seen it. If you're a horror aficionado. Oh, I got to use that as an SEO keyword. I like that. And I did find on Audible, there is a radio play like on Audible of this movie, kind of rewritten a bit to fit for that. And John Delancey stars in it as Franz, whatever that guy was. So if you like Q from Star Trek, he's done a lot of these type of things. And I also found one for Nosferatu also on Audible. So
yeah, it just really struck me as I was watching this, like it was ahead of its time for sure, and it started a movement, but just this plain scene when the somnambulist wakes for the first time is a legitimately creepy scene.
yeah,
Like the camera gets tight in on him and everything, and he looks ill, and I was just like, that is really well done.
yeah, and
So
his proclamation that that guy's going to die by morning, and his friends freaking out about it. Well, his friends is the one that killed him, and later you find out, oh, this is all just a fever dream of the crazy guy.
yeah.
And he worked it all into the whole thing. You know, it's a well written story, and I'm really surprised nobody's wanted to pick this up and redo it, because with modern effects and stuff, you don't need a lot, but there could be some good things they could do with this one.
Oh yeah, I mean you can definitely see its influence through you know, like Shutter Island and stuff like that.
Right.
This kind of theme has been done several times, but you're right, no one has actually just been like, I'm just going to remake this movie.
Yeah, it's one of the few, you know, that doesn't
Yeah.
have a remake. We've got some coming up that have more modern remakes and stuff. So when we get to those, I'm going to watch both and do some comparison on them.
Yeah, yeah. But over 100 years, come on guys.
Yeah.
Somebody pick this up and go with it.
I'll put links if anyone listening want to watch it. We'll have a couple links because there's a couple different versions out. And from my understanding, the sepia colored one is the more accurate to what they wanted it to look like rather than the black and white one. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right. And next coming up, you're going to love it. We have Vampire, and the early vampire stuff.
I actually enjoyed Vampire. So
Yeah, I don't think I've watched it in long enough that I barely remembered, except some of the really cool kind of in your head scenery. So we'll get to
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Post World War II, that's when I started having problems with vampire movies. Before that, I'm good with them.
Well, you know, I did see Nosferatu, and I put a little thing up about it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a well done remake from Eggers.
Oh, good.
It was Eggers, right? Yeah, I think so. So, all right, there we go. Quick, short side dish.
There it is.
Hope everybody's full. Talk to you later.